Let's take a look at the logic of Mount Rushmore. Let's apply some questions to the formation of the world's largest rock group. That's right, Mount Rushmore. Okay? And ask these people these common logical questions about that simple formation. Do you believe, evolutionists, that there is any way that these faces of Washington, Jefferson, Theodore Roosevelt, and Lincoln could have appeared on this rock by chance? Okay? Do you think that the wind did that? Maybe erosion did it. Do you think, how about exfoliation? How about the thermal expansion of rock? Okay? Is that what created those faces? If you asked them what caused the faces to appear on Mount Rushmore, they would obviously say they were what? They're designed by somebody, and of course they're right. It was by an artist named Gutzon Borglum. Okay? He had a rough time in kindergarten. Can you imagine with that name? Wow. But anyway, Chrome theory. Anyway, but then ask him this question, okay? So I'm thinking about it. Do you believe the men represented here happened by chance? If they believe in evolution, they got to say yes, right? But then you ask him, no, wait a second. You don't think that their face could appear on rock by chance, but you think their whole complex anatomy with 50 trillion cells could happen by chance? Who's checking in? Who's bringing at the door? But then ask him, well, how many years would it take for those faces to appear on the side of the mountain purely by chance? How about 1,000,000 years? I'll give you 1,000,000,000 years. How about 100 trillion years could these figures eventually form on the side of that mountain purely by chance, the faces? Well, of course, they would say it's impossible no matter how much time you give it, right? That's the logical response. But then ask him, isn't that though how you say we got here? After billions of years of chance, and we're even more incredibly complex than just the faces on a rock, Mount Rushmore? Folks, the logical conclusion is that just as the faces on Mount Rushmore had to be designed, how much more then should the human body be designed? Okay? Who's checking in? Who's bringing at the door? And speaking of rockheads, folks, while evolutionists will refrain from saying that the faces carved on Mount Rushmore happened by chance, get this, folks, they really do believe that we all came from a rock. Don't believe me? Check out this video clip.
I was asked me to speak at this college in Boston one time. This preacher called all the colleges and universities around Boston. I got my charts out and I said, now folks, I believe the Bible. Nobody cheered. I said, I believe about 6,000 years ago God made everything. The world's not millions of years old. And 2,000 years ago Jesus came, and I gave them the basic Bible story, okay? Then I told them what they believe. Because most of them don't know what they believe. You have to tell them. You guys believe 20 billion years ago there was a big bang where nothing exploded and produced everything. 4.6 billion years ago the earth cooled down, made a hard rocky crust. It rained on the rocks for millions of years, turned them into soup, and the soup came alive 3 billion years ago. And this early life form found somebody to marry. Boy, now that's a good trick. And something to eat, of course, and slowly evolved into everything we see today. One professor was getting kind of upset about this time. I seem to do that to them. He said, Mr. Hovind, there are hundreds of varieties of dogs in the world. I said, yes, sir, you're right about that. He said, you mean to tell me that you believe all these dogs came from 2 dogs off of Noah's Ark? You expect me to believe that? Ha, ha, ha. I said, sir, would you look at what you're teaching your students? You're teaching your students that all the dogs in the world came from a rock. I had one woman come to me after a debate one time. She was steaming down the aisle. Boy, she was mad. Oh, I could tell I'm in trouble now. I stood there quivering in my boots, you know. She walked up and she said, tonight you said we believe we come from a rock. We do not believe that. I said, well, ma'am, calm down just for a minute. I said, do you believe in evolution? She said, yes, I do. I'm a professor here at the university. I said, well, would you please tell me then where we came from? She said, we came from a macromolecule. I said, where did that come from? She said, from the oceans, from the prebiotic soup. I said, where did that come from? She said, well, it rained on the rocks for millions of years. And you could see it was slowly dawning on her. I do believe I come from a rock, don't I? Yes, ma'am, you do. You ought to be proud of it. Hey, don't step on Grandpa, whatever you do.
Oh, folks, please let us come and reason together. How many of you guys can be careful when you leave here? Don't be stepping on some relatives out in the parking lot there. Okay? Folks, sarcasm can actually be taught. And the issue is this: let's come and reason together. And I think it's pretty obvious once you look at some common sense logic and apply it not just to our game, so to speak, creationism. When you apply it to evolution, it shows there's no stinking way that life could ever have evolved, right? I mean, we're inviting us to what? Come, let us reason together. Life had to be intelligently designed by an intelligent creator. And that's exactly what John O'Keefe, listen to this, an astronomer at NASA, Okay, he said this. He says, we are, by astronomical standards, a pampered, a cosseted, a cherished group of creatures. Get this. He said if the universe had not been made with the most exacting precision, we could never have come into existence. Get this. He said, it's my view that these circumstances indicate the universe, quote, was created for man to live in. The odds, okay? And folks, it's just in case some common sense logic was not enough to dispel a myth that we're supposedly the ones who's checking in our brains at the door. Let's continue and come and reason together. And let's logically observe, come reason together, and see if the odds even allow evolution to ever take place. It's impossible, folks, and they know that. Let's first of all start off with the odds of a single protein. Just a protein, folks. It has been calculated that any event with a value of 1 chance in 10 to the 50th power will never occur by chance. If it did, it would be considered a miracle. A mathematician, Emile Borel, calculated that any event with a value, a probability value of 10 to the 50th power, I don't care what number you put on it, if it goes above that, it can never occur. I could say, I'm going to throw a baseball to the moon. That's great. I can even calculate the odds of that. I don't care what number you got, but it's what? Would it ever happen? No, of course not. You can have great intentions. You can believe that all you want, but it will never happen. And that's what he's saying. If it's got a value, any event has a value beyond 10 to the 50th power, it could never ever occur, just like trying to throw a baseball to the moon. So now that we know the threshold of an event being mathematically impossible, let's take a look at the odds. Just a single protein ever coming into existence. World famous astronomer Sir Frederick Hoyle decided to calculate that, the probability of a single bacterium coming into existence by chance from, some sort of primordial soup, okay? Prior to this project, he was a firm believer in spontaneous generation. But after this project, when he looked at the facts, it changed his opinion 180 degrees. He calculated the probability of the spontaneous generation of just the proteins of a single amoeba was 1 chance in 10 to the what? 40,000th power. And remember, any event beyond 10 to the 50th power is mathematically impossible. Thus, it could never, ever occur. And just to give you an idea how big that 10 to the 40,000 number is, folks, the number of atoms in the entire universe is estimated to be about 10 to the 87th power. And that's 10 to the 40,000th power. Therefore, thinking that just the proteins of a single amoeba, let alone the amoeba itself, spontaneously coming into existence is absolutely ridiculous. In fact, it's been said that this kind of thinking is about as reasonable as if you were to say you truly believe that if you just had enough time and just enough chance that a Scrabble factory could explode enough times until the letters eventually land out to perfectly spell the book War and Peace. Or that somehow a tornado, by chance, can whip through a junkyard, leaving behind a perfectly formed Boeing 747. It's the same amount of logic. Or, in fact, folks, if you do the math, the odds of a person winning a state lottery every single week, every week, not just once, every week in their life, from age 18 to 99, is more likely than the spontaneous generation of just the proteins of a single amoeba. I don't care, pick your planet, folks, it's never going to happen. They know it's utterly impossible. And that's why Fred Hoyle concluded, quote, the likelihood of the formation of life from inanimate matter, i.e. a rock, is 1 to the 40,000 number after it. Listen to the direct quote. He said that is enough to bury Darwin and the whole theory of evolution. Get this, as a scientist, he said there was no primeval soup, neither on what? This planet, or what? Or any other. He said, and if the beginnings of life were not random, which we don't see, he said they must therefore logically come reason together. They have to be the product of purposeful intelligence. There's no way. But that's not all. How about the odds of a single bacteria? Keep in mind, folks, all of evolution is based on that. What did that lady say in that video? A micromolecule, right? Everything's based on a little supposed simple cell. We've already seen there is no such thing as a simple cell. But let's just give them that. What are the odds of that coming into existence, okay? We've seen the proteins, the odds of just the proteins. Let's just not take into consideration, though, the so-called transformation of the DNA, the RNA, or the cell wall that holds the contents of the cells together. Believe it or not, a Yale University physicist named Harold Morowitz, he calculated the odds for us for this. Listen to this. He demonstrated that the chances of a single bacteria, the foundation of evolution, somehow coming to life is 1 in 10, not the millionth, not the billionth, but 1 in 10 to the 100 trillionth power. That's the whole foundation of evolution. Anything beyond 10 to the 50th power is absolutely impossible. That number is so big, folks, that it would require several 100,000 blank books just to write the zeros of that number out. And get this, folks, not just you, but you and your entire extended family. are more likely to win the lottery every single week for 100 years than it is for a single bacteria to form by chance. That's the actual scientific mathematical issues. And keep in mind, folks, that's just one cell. Keep in mind our body's got an estimated 50 trillion cells, which all have to be in existence all at the same time, and all have to work properly at the same time in order for life to function. And that's just one human body. As you heard on the video, keep in mind if you want to procreate, then you got to have two of them appear on the scene at the same time. You got to have one happens to be a male, one's a female. They got to be interested in each other, and we know it's hard just enough to get married. Right? It had to come from God. That's the logical conclusion, right? That's exactly what they're saying, folks. And they're saying if you don't think that, if you're looking at using your own brain, using logic, if you still think life happened by chance, you're the one who's checking your brain at the door, right? I didn't just say that, the facts do. And I didn't just say that, just the facts, but so do the scientists. When you come and reason together,